God was honest with Abram from the beginning, although you wouldn't know it from what we read in today's first lesson. See, we have this thing where we use a comma in the Bible, right? That means we're going to skip over the next part. And there's lots of reasons that we do this, right? I mean, sometimes it's because right in the middle of a really good story is a really long list of who begat who. Nobody wants to hear that. Or because it's the dimensions of the temple. But I'm not sure that's why this comma got put here by whoever put together the Revised Common Lectionary, which is what we read in most mainline churches. I think it's because we didn't want to know what was coming next, right? I mean, it says a deep darkness descended upon Abraham. Never mind, let's skip that part. That's basically what they said. We don't want to know, right? We want to just be, it's all about God's given us land and God's given us children and there's going to be more descendants than the stars in the sky. Never mind that they're going to spend 400 years in slavery and being oppressed. That is what the comma says, in case you didn't bother to read ahead of what we were skipping over this week. And we don't want to hear about that. We just want to skip right to the part where all the things are cut up and the flame walks through them, whatever that is about. But can you really blame us? I mean, that's what the Pharisees were doing too, right? I know the Pharisees are supposed to be the bad guys, right? Like they always, are giving Jesus a hard time. But in this case, they're trying to save his life, right? Because they weren't wrong, right? Herod was out to kill him, right? We know where this story goes. We know how the story ends. Jerusalem, the cross, that's where this path goes. That's the only way. Jesus knows that, right? They thought, maybe don't die a horrible death. How about that option? But Jesus said, there's only one way around this, and that's through it. In a year about the liturgy, Jacques Leclerc writes about all the different seasons, and when you think about Lent, right, there's something about Lent that gets kind of, I don't want to say self-absorbed, but we spend so much of Lent trying to figure out, can I make it another week without eating junk food? You guys didn't take a pool up, did you? I'm doing okay, all right? But it's about me, right? Like, what do I need to do? Can I do this? Am I, And Jacques Leclerc is talking about, well, how do you think Jesus felt right now in this point in the journey, right? He's on his way to Jerusalem. He knows how the story's going to end. He knows about the cross that he alone must bear. And everyone else is busy with their silly dreams, Leclerc writes. And us too, he writes, with the stock market and the business and the price of butter, or I would say the price of eggs if we're talking about now, right? All of that is so much more important than the cross of Jesus. Why do you think we do that? Why do we close our eyes to the moments in our lives like it's a bad scene in a movie, right? Like we could just skip this part, put a comma in the scriptures that we don't want to hear about. Is it really because we have the kind of faith that Jesus does? That we know no matter what comes, no matter what Herods are coming after us, that God is going to be with us? Or is it because it's just easier to worry about things like the price of eggs, right? There's something about that kind of level of worry that you can get your head around. What we're headed toward with Easter, what we're headed toward before Easter, that's too difficult to contemplate. So let's worry about something that feels a little more manageable. In case you're not an expert on Near Eastern contractual rituals, somebody might be. Surely someone is, because I read from them that the reason for all these cut up animals is because in those days, that was how people made contracts, right? They would cut animals up, and then both people agree to whatever they agree to, and then they walk through in between the cut up animals together as a symbol that they're going to keep this promise, or else that same thing that happened to those animals is going to happen to them, right? Think of it as the original pinky swear. It's like, this is for real, y'all. Like, we're taking this seriously, and if we don't follow this contract, then there's going to be consequences. Except in the story of Abram, only God goes through the broken pieces, right? Did you notice that? the fire that symbolizes God, right? That moves through the broken pieces. Abram's asleep, right? Like his pinky's got nothing to do with this. He has no part in this contract. And that's because, as Scott reminded us last Sunday, a covenant is not the same as a contract, especially a covenant that God makes. It is a one-sided promise. God said, I will be with you. I am your shield, and your reward will be great. The end, right? There's no if you do this or if you earn this, right? That's it. That is my promise to you. I will be with you. And there'll be land, and there'll be lots of descendants, as much as the star, and I am your shield. I walk with you wherever you go. Now, if you've ever had the experience of someone loving you close to unconditionally, I know we can't do it very well as humans, not quite as good as God, but when you say, marry someone and you promise that you're going to be faithful to them. Sometimes parents feel this way about our kids, sometimes, right? We love them no matter what. Well, if someone loves you no matter what, your first reaction isn't, what can I do to mess this up, right? Except for maybe when you're a teenager, but how far can I push this line? How far can I push this person so then they might not love me, right? Let's see if they're really serious about how far they love. That's not usually how we behave with other humans, but for some reason that seems to be the way we behave with God, right? God's like, I'm gonna love you no matter what, and we're like, let me see about that. Just give me a minute. Let's see if you love this. And so when Jesus came, he was trying to remind us of that promise, right? All these things, there were prophets and teachers, and we kept saying, yeah, that's nice, but let's just do whatever we want, right? Jesus came so that we would remember that the promise of God isn't actually about land and descendants and whatever other wonderful things we might get. The promise of God is about relationship, right? God says, I'm going to walk with you no matter what. I'm going to be with you no matter what. And that's what Jesus showed us, right? He walked and took on what happened in Jerusalem so that we would know that there is something beyond pain and suffering. There is life on the other side of death. And that no matter what we go through in this life, no matter what the amount of pain or suffering or agony we feel like is happening, God knows that literally in God's body. God literally understands what that kind of pain is like. And so whatever we're going through, God is with us. The point of Easter, and yes, I know it's Lent. Don't worry, I'm not going to say the A word or anything. Not that A word. Goodness gracious, it's a sermon. Easter is a reminder to us that the other side of pain is life. And that when we are in pain, as the hymn we just talked about, we pick up our cross and we walk with Jesus, right? Jesus walks with us. And on the other side of pain is new life, something new, something that is born again. So the question of Lent is, what do we do to prepare for that? How do we get our lives ready for that kind of overwhelming, unfathomable love? How do we take the pain of our lives and transform it into power like Jesus did? How do we choose to be dignified human beings, beloved children of God, and offer forgiveness to people? How do we find a way to help people who are suffering in the way that we have suffered, right? So if we've been hungry, how do we make sure people get food? How do we live in a world where there are so many things that feel like they're going wrong with hope, nevertheless? The other day I got a message from God on the radio. Does this happen to anyone else? It might be a vocational hazard. But you're listening to the music and then something comes on and you're just like, I wonder if that's for me, I wonder if that's... So there I am, and in between the soundtrack of Wicked and Kendrick Lamar, Spotify, right? I don't know. Comes this song by Ana Hernandez, who's a songwriter and actually from the Episcopal Church. And the words of the song were, Do not be afraid. My love is stronger than your fear, and I have promised to always be near. It rhymes because it's a song, but it's still a profound sentiment. And when I heard that, right, don't be afraid. My love is stronger than your fear, and I am with you, right? It's like all the things, the price of eggs, and the conflict in the world, and the conflict in our lives. God's love is stronger than that. And God is reminding us that what we are called to do is not about things. It's about relationship. It's about love. It's about that most important commandment Jesus taught us to love God and to love one another. How can we be a part of God's overwhelming, unbelievable love rather than a hindrance to it? How can we say, as Paul sort of says, let the haters hate, we're going to love like God loves?